Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Card Talk, a podcast where we spend a little bit of time talking about cards from Lord of the Rings card game. I'm your host, Dave Walsh.
And I'm Grant Thompson, just along for the ride.
And Ted Bannock, who loves talking about cards, is not going to join us for the next couple of shows. So, Grant, it's like we're right back in the good old days here, pre-Ted, right?
Yeah, it's been a while.
It has been a while. It's kind of, we love Ted, but it's kind of nice just you and me. So, but you know who is always with us? It's our patrons. So I'd like to take a minute to thank all the patrons that we have. We have Daniel, David, Joseph, Justin, Kyle, Lewis, Mike, Dominic, Phil, Rob, Robert. we got a lot of Robs and Roberts, it looks like, and then Sean. So
Thank you all.
So thank you all for supporting the show. And if anybody wants to help support the show and give us suggestions about what to do in the show, feel free to join us in the process at patreon.com/cardtalk2018. Grant, I don't even know how to run the show with just you anymore. It's so weird. But who are we going to talk about today?
We are going to talk about the core set hero from the Spirit Sphere, Eleanor. We're going back to the classics here.
Yeah, the classics.
So Eleanor is a 7-cost, 1 willpower, 1 attack, 2 defense, 3 hit point, Gondor Noble, with the response: exhaust Eleanor to cancel a when revealed effects of a treachery card just revealed by the encounter deck. Then discard that card and replace it with the next card from the encounter deck. However, there's been a couple of erratas to our card over the course of the game. The latest one is Eleanor's ability can't cancel other keywords just when revealed effects. Any when revealed effect and keywords on the replacement card are still resolved because it's considered to be revealed.
Yeah, so basically just some clarifications on that when revealed thing, which at the beginning, no, those erratas or FAQ entries were from the very beginning of the game back in 2011, because it can be confusing for new players to start out. The difference between adding a card to the staging area and revealing a card from the staging area. So adding a card just means taking the card and putting it into the staging area or wherever without doing anything that says when revealed. It's not being revealed, it's just being added. And then the when revealed or revealing a card means to draw it and to look at the when revealed effect that card has. Not every card has a when revealed effect, but it's there.
Yeah, and some of them can be quite nasty.
Oh yeah. I think that's one of the ways that the encounter deck really tries to get ahead on you.
Yeah, but just for a little fact, she is the lowest cost hero out of the entire core set.
Yeah, and 7 is actually one of the lowest cost heroes out there even now, with almost the whole game being printed. You know, there's a couple. You know,
barring the Hobbits and the Hobbit folk. So, like, Smeagol, who's just recently been released, or is due to be released. Her and Glorfindel are probably the two lowest cost heroes that are of men and elves.
Yeah, right. Even the hobbits have a tendency to be around, 6, 7, or 8. So, I mean, she's definitely a low threat hero. And the funny thing is that when I got my first set, I wasn't necessarily excited to play with Eleanor. Something meta about the game is that actually Cardboard of the Rings, their very first shows when it was Brandon and Andrew, I used to call them Brandrew when I was listening to the first 10 episodes or so. Very shortly after Brandon kept going with the show, Andrew left and was doing other things. But their first recording, I think either episode 0 or episode 1A, was called "Don't Ignore Eleanor," which is funny. So because that's just how interesting this character is from the very beginning. Low threat. She doesn't do much else, actually. I mean, she's an okay defender, but with 3 hit points, you're going to find her good. So I think the real reason that you're going to play Eleanor is for her response. I think, especially in that core set, and Grant, I'll give you a second to talk about her and why you use her, but I think in that core set, like if you're going to get a Necromancer's Reach, you're gonna use her to cancel the Necromancer's Reach and then draw another card and hope that it's not Necromancer's Reach. And then so it's like it's a kind of like a permanent test of will. The only problem that the only thing I don't like about this card is that you have to, it's not a test of will completely, because you have to take it and you have to replace the card that you just did, that you just canceled the when revealed effects of. So that's a bummer. But it's not limited, so you can ready her with another core set staple, Unexpected Courage, or all the other ways to ready people, cram, things like that, and use her as often as your readying will allow. But anyways,
her ability can only be used when the card is revealed from the encounter deck. Now,
well, right, but I mean, if you're gonna cancel the one, when revealed effect, and then discard it, then you have to do it again.
But there's no action window to trigger Unexpected Courage during staging.
Right, that's what I said.
So
you can't ready her and use it again. So you're really stuck using her once.
Unless you have something like a Watchful Eyes in the Dwardow cycle. When a Watchful Eyes comes out, you reveal an extra card at the end of staging if the hero attached with Watchful Eyes is exhausted. If the hero with Watchful Eyes is exhausted, you reveal an extra encounter card. So that could be a second trigger for Eleanor if you have her ready.
Right.
But as David says, 9 times out of 10, you're going to be playing Eleanor for her response rather than for her stats. I've recently been playing a game with Onidson, aka Samuel Sheave.
Yeah, friend of the show, actually. Samuel. Yeah. He just had a baby. Congratulations, Samuel.
Yeah, and he's done a campaign with Eleanor, taking her through the core set and on through. Well, we've just finished recording Khazad-dûm and the Dwardow cycle. So once we get them up, she'll continue our adventure.
Right.
But she's shown her valor in some of those games, getting rid of nasty treacheries and even taking a defense or two forward.
Yeah, I mean, not that she can't be a defender, but if she's going to do something other than her response, she's probably not going to quest. You probably don't want her to quest because you're going to want to leave her ready so that you can use her ability during the staging step. And so then, one attack, two defense, you're going to use her to defend more than you're going to use her to attack. So, and I would guess that if you're playing the core set right out of the box, she's one of the reasons why you're going to love playing the Spirit deck, is because you get to cancel the when revealed, and you get to see how she gets to kind of cripple the encounter deck just all by herself. And actually, I guess this is a good time as any to talk about that a little bit. Is that, one of the reasons why we're talking about Eleanor, well, A, she's a decent hero, but B, we also wanted to talk a little bit about cards from the core set. Again, just because as new players enter, we want to make sure that there's content just for new players too. So I think that, when new players are thinking about what makes a card good and what makes a card not good, I think Eleanor falls in the category of being pretty good because of her ability, but not but not good because of her stats. So, I think that
Well,
makes her well balanced in terms of
yeah,
playability.
definitely. I mean, she puts me in mind of a card from the Harad cycle, Furiel, who, when he commits to the quest, you get a look at the top card of the encounter deck, and if you don't like it, you discard it and reveal the next one. Eleanor basically does the same thing for when reveals.
Yeah, right. You get to choose, and so when you're thinking about this, there's not really a ton of cards that combo off of Eleanor that you use Eleanor to combo off of. But I love that her threat is low. And we touched on this at the beginning of the show. Because her threat is low, you're not going to necessarily have to engage lots of enemies at the beginning, so you can kind of mitigate the encounter deck if there's some bad events going on there, right?
Definitely.
And then you can go from there. But I think, how do I want to say this? I think that Eleanor is great, and even using Test of Will with Eleanor is fine to use. It's not duplicating yourself because
Definitely.
Eleanor only targets the treachery cards, as opposed to Test of Will just cancels the one revealed on any card. So there's enemies and locations that have one revealed effects at times too.
It's a good thing to always have a backup plan with a Test of Will, just in case you've exhausted Eleanor to say get rid of a Necromancer's Reach, and the next one was either a Necromancer's Reach or something else, and you were going to lose half your board state because half your allies were already damaged or had one hit point. It's always a good idea to have backups.
Right. And so when I'm looking at just the core set, okay, and provided you don't have a Test of Will in your hand, right? So here are some of the things that you would be able to cancel using Eleanor. Eyes of the Forest, which discards all the event cards in your hand. That may or may not hit, but you may or may not want to. So you may or may not want to use Eleanor. Okay, Caught in a Web. How many times would you love to cancel Caught in a Web? Right? Like that's like the most annoying card ever in the core set. Necromancer's Reach we talked about, and then there's Under the Shadow. Did you talk about Under the Shadow?
I cannot remember.
Okay, so Under the Shadow, which raises your threat by X. Again, having that flexibility to cancel or to not cancel that is great. You don't have to use Eleanor, right? Iron Shackles typically is something that I don't usually want to cancel. It just prevents me from drawing a card, which is fine. But I mean, those Evil Storm, again, Pursued by Shadow, those are things that you have the ability that you may want to cancel at some point, but at other points you may not want to cancel. So so there's just just in the core set alone, there's a lot of options that you may want to use Eleanor, and you may not want to use Eleanor for her ability. So
going beyond that of the core set, there are several quests which are heavily treachery based that have some nasty effects. I'm thinking things like Journey to Roscabel. All those nasty treacheries that damage Williador or damage your heroes in general, which is ideal for cancelling because they are probably some of the worst treacheries in the early parts of the game.
Right. I'm always conflicted playing Eleanor. Okay, so a little insight into where I'm going to rate this card is because I love that she's low threat and I like her ability to cancel, but I'm primarily a solo player, and so it's hard for me to have a hero on the board that she cancels something, but then you're not getting a lot of different usages out of her. You know what I mean? Like she doesn't have, 4 defense and she gets to cancel. So that's a tough thing for me playing solo. But I think that going from the beginning, like if I were a new player starting out, I think that Eleanor would make it into my deck most of the time.
Just her artwork looks amazing. Again, Magali Villeneuve has done an amazing piece of art on this hero.
Yeah. And Eleanor is a created
yes,
hero.
she has no basis within the lore of Middle Earth.
Well, there is a little basis. Like Sam's daughter's name was Eleanor, and then there was a flower Eleanor, both spelled differently.
But what I'm meaning is there was no Gondorian woman.
There's no Gondor woman named Eleanor.
Well, there might be, but none that made it into Tolkien's work.
Right. So, right, that's the thing, right? In the Expanse, he always liked to name things even if there was no background on the name. So, if it's not in Tolkien's Legendarium as to the name spelled in that way, then she didn't exist. So, anyways, should we ring this character?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's do it. So, just a reminder for anybody new to the show or forgets how we do this, we have a highly arbitrary yet scientific system where we rank our cards on a scale from 1 to 10, where 1 ring is the one card to rule them all, and 10 rings is the card that we throw back into the fiery chasm from whence it was made. And so... let's see here. Grant, do you want to go first or do you want me to?
Easy either way, mate.
Okay, so I'll start off. Here's the thing. I play solo mainly, and I have to take into account that there's a whole bunch of solo heroes out there, right? And when I look at Eleanor and I see her in the core set, I think that she's probably top half of the heroes in the core set. And she does something that you want a lot. But as the card pool has expanded, I can't ignore that there's been a ton of other cards out there with low threat and with abilities that may be a touch better. But I still think that ability can hold, what do I want to say, is still useful even throughout the card pool, even throughout the game. I think that if I see Eleanor on the table, I'm not going to be grumpy for anybody running Eleanor. Maybe in a 4-player game where you're going through four encounter cards, like she loses her luster a little bit. But I still think in a 2-player game, I'm not upset if the person across from me is playing Eleanor. So I like her, but I don't love her. But I wouldn't mind having some more of her. So I think I'm gonna split the middle with Eleanor, and I think I'm gonna rate Eleanor. Well, actually, I'm gonna do a 6 because I don't reach for her often, but I won't be upset if she's there. So
if someone else reaches for her,
yeah, if somebody else reaches for her. So what do you think? What do you?
I like Eleanor, and until recently, I never really played with her that much. She wasn't. As you said, she wasn't always going to make the top tier list, and with her stat line being the way it was. But recently, playing alongside that, my opinion of Eleanor has changed. She's gained a little bit more ground in my eyes. I'm more likely to play her in a multiplayer environment to a solo player environment. So whether I'm playing her or someone else is playing her, I wouldn't be upset about it either way. But I would have to make a deck that it was, with Eleanor, it would have to be a supporting role. I couldn't see it being the main body of the deck. So I'm going to give her a 5.
5 rings. Okay. 5 rings. Okay, well, everybody, join us again as we talk about more cards from the game. Have a great day. And if you're interested in finding this or any of our back episodes of Card Talk, Feel free to search YouTube, where you can find our flagship video episodes with the username CardTalk2018. Or you can search the RSS feed, cardtalk2018.libsyn.org, for our extended audio versions of our podcast. Or you can find us on Facebook at CardTalk2018. And if you have any questions for Grant or myself, or for both of us, feel free to email us at cardtalk2018@gmail.com.